Hi, I'm Nan Simonson. I'm the author of Aging Powerfully. I'm a whole food, plant-based culinary coach and health and lifestyle coach with Lifestyle Medical, a practice here in Riverside, California, run by one of the founders of the College of Lifestyle Medicine and one of their past presidents, and I'm an affiliate member of the College of Lifestyle Medicine. And I've had a lot of training in plant-based nutrition, including T. Colin Campbell's course through E. Cornell. And I'm a little out of my wheelhouse here because this is the fourth, or is it the fifth, of my series of vegan cheeses. I want to give a shout out to Julie Piatt for her marvelous book that got me going. Chef AJ interviewed Julie. She spoke of her book. I bought the book and I heavily invested in everything that I needed to make cheese. For example, I found that it took a bit of a case to, get the things she talked about. For example, if I want to make a cheese orange, beta carotene, squeeze it right out of that cap. When I made my blue cheese, spirulina. There is a way to thicken, agar. There is another way to thicken, and that is is this my tapioca starch? No, lactic acid. This isn't thickening, and this is a flavor and preservative, but I haven't used that yet. Anyway, cheesecloth, even a pounding mallet to get into coconut because she loves coconut and uses fresh coconut in some of her cheeses. Well, what we're using today is one of those kind of interesting, odd things that I'm actually crazy about. I really like it, and that is Scotch moss. It's a sea moss, and you're gonna say, yeah, I'm really gonna get that. Well, you get all of this, at least I did, on Amazon, and it looks like sea moss. Look, it's kind of dried up, sandy, well actually salty, it's not really that sandy, sea moss. It smells like the ocean. So, what you do with this, and for this recipe and several that I've used it in, I think 3 of my 5 would be with the sea moss, because it gives a brininess, it gives a marvelous flavor. 1/4 cup, soak it. It's gonna take that volume to be able to whir it in a blender and turn it into an emulsion. And then we only use 2 tablespoons. So what I did is I did a 1/2 cup with the amount of water, doubled that 1/4 cup, and I measured out the emulsion. Let me put this back in here. This thing has a very interesting aroma. And I packaged it in little Tupperware containers, 2 tablespoon containers, because labeled it very carefully, 2 tablespoons. Sea moss, even the date, January 28th, 2023, because her recipes call for 2 tablespoons of the emulsion. So I just froze a number of tablespoons of the 2 tablespoon quantities for my cheeses, and it's been very helpful. I don't have to reconstitute, anyway, well, the moss is put into a bowl overnight, soaking it, and then you rinse until it doesn't smell like a mermaid anymore. And then you emulsify it. Okay, so I am making what I'm gonna call the leanest of the cheeses. And why am I saying I'm out of my wheelhouse? I haven't experimented, but it'd be pretty hard to make a cheese without using salt. Cheese is probably one of the highest foods in cholesterol, in saturated fat, in salt, and we're doing away with the quantities that you would normally get in processed cheeses, real cheeses, the dairy kind of cheeses. These are real. But we still have some salt in here. As a matter of fact, we have 2 salty ingredients. I have some Himalayan salt, it could have been sea salt, and I also have miso. So let me take it one thing at a time. The other thing about this is that I'm using what I say I don't use, which is oil. Her recipes, she is, again, very much in favor of using oil, coconut oil. This is refined organic coconut oil. And she believes it's an elixir because of the lactic acid, although it's 80-90% saturated fat. It affects our body a little differently than animal saturated fat, and the lactic acid is supposed to be antibacterial and have other great properties. This recipe, her recipe, called for 3 tablespoons of coconut oil. I'm only using 1, and for the other 2 tablespoons, I'm using tahini. Tahini is still a fat, but it's a whole food fat because it's sesame seeds ground up. I've done this before. It's worked beautifully. So I'm first going to add 2 cans of drained, rinsed and drained white beans. And in this case, they are organic northern white beans. You can use cannellini, which I think may be the same thing, or at least very close to it. And then I am just throwing in the rest of the ingredients, which includes miso paste. I don't know if you've used miso. Boy, the umami, and umami is that flavor, not salty, not bitter, not sweet, but something that has a richness that is almost indescribable in terms of flavor component. So I have 2 tablespoons of chickpea miso. I could have used soy miso, but I love this brand. It is American-made organic miso since 1979, now certified plastic neutral chickpea, whatever that means. Chickpea Miso Master is the brand, premium soy-free miso, non-GMO, etc., etc. Again, I like it, and I use miso. Actually, every morning I put some miso in a container with my oats and my quinoa. I use oat groats and a couple of big hands full of frozen super greens, because once they are put in the bowl, I can crunch them and they go into little shards and they fill the bowl nicely. And with the miso, some shiitake mushroom and almond milk. Doesn't this sound weird? In essence, I'm making a cream of spinach soup with an Asian flair because there's some ginger in there as well, and put some hot sauce. And I have a savory breakfast and it's delicious, really good. Okay, boy, did I get off. So we have beans, we have miso, I have nutritional yeast. Now I'm varying her recipe. I'm adding more nutritional yeast, a tablespoon more. Why? Because the coconut oil hardens when it's cold and miso does not. So I figured let's add something to thicken it. And so I'm putting in the tahini. It's all in your recipe, the amounts that I used, and the 1 tablespoon of coconut oil. And it's not coconut oil, well, it is if it's a warm day, but you see how firm this is? That's what coconut oil, that's what saturated fat does. Ooh, it gets hard in the cold, and it's, you know, probably 68 degrees in here. I'm putting in some lemon juice. I'm putting in the salt and garlic powder. I actually don't use garlic powder. I buy something called garlic or granulated garlic, and I like that better. And this happens to be the tahini I buy. It's organic and it's from Trader Joe's. You'll hear on my videos, and I hope you watch a lot of my videos on YouTube, Nan Simonson, because, because they're whole food plant-based in 90% of the cases, low salt, no added oil, or little, something like this, maybe a spread of it on a paper towel to make something not stick. I'm going to put in the 1/2 cup, but you're going to hear me say, oh, and I got that at Trader Joe's and that. Well, there's a Trader Joe's 4 minutes from my home, 3 minutes on a good day. All right, this is the emulsion. Let me see if I can get you to, yeah, here. I want you to see this. This is, isn't that interesting? This is the sea moss, and it no longer smells like a mermaid. It doesn't really even smell like the sea, but there's the only word I can use is brininess, and that's 2 tablespoons. Freezes fabulously, and so it makes sense to make more than you need if you're gonna do this often. If you get her book, oh, did I show you? Julie Piatt, and the name of her book, Piatt, is This Cheese is Nuts. And then I bought 3 other vegan cheese cookbooks. One of my favorite, you'll see that by its condition. Vegan Cheese, Simple, Delicious, and Plant-Based by Julie Piatt. Look at all this. I'm having fun with this. We've gone to a number of dinner parties, and I bring, actually I'll put it up at the back of this video, I bring a charcuterie board of cheeses with some fruit and crackers and embellishments, and I've become known for those vegan cheeses. They are delicious, and they have no saturated fat except coconut, but they don't all have coconut. And if they do, it's the tiniest bit. One of them, I think, says a teaspoon of coconut oil. And I'm gonna do something that's not in this recipe. Now, if it's still in the printed recipe, you'll know I liked it. If it's not, you'll know I didn't like it. And that is something that is in a lot of her, what we call aged cheeses, the ones that go into my dehydrator for 24 hours. Well, I want to age this. I've not aged it yet. I've made this, 3-4 times. People love it. But I want to age it and see what happens. So the way you do that is by using a probiotic or a live culture. And this is Acidophilus. The brand is now, it's 2 billion strains. In her recipe, she calls for 3 billion. So I use 1.5 of the little capsules. I don't know if it really works that way, but that's what I do. Well, I'm using just 1 capsule, and I don't know if you can see this. See, it's a powder. It is these cultures that now that I've done this, between the miso, which is fermented product, as well as that, I now have enough cultures in here that this should ferment very, very well. All right, I have my water in here, the beans. You're gonna find if you make this, that a power blender comes in very handy, and you're gonna see that even with the tamper, it needs to be redistributed. And I'm sorry, if this were Zoom, I could quiet the sound, sorry. And if I were a better techie, I would quiet the sound with some kind of a editing program, but I don't have that. Okay, so I'm sorry. Okay, here we go. I want this to be silky. So, I'm gonna put this on the mold, and I'll show you the mold in a minute. That was the other thing I invested in. Again, they were on Amazon, little cake molds. Because this needs to be well incorporated, and it is pretty much, with the tamper, it's pushing things into that vortex that is caused by the pulling in and pushing out of the product that's in here, and whatever it is, and it happens to be, in this case, beans and what you just saw put in. I'm going to do it one more time. and we should be ready to put it in the molds. This is how easy it is. And although she says put it in the refrigerator and go ahead and use it, I'm going to now put this in my 95-degree dehydrator. Her recommendation is 90. Mine doesn't go down that low. It goes to 95, or the lowest is 95, but it does do 24 hours. And I'm going to dehydrate it and see what I think. And if it's not on the recipe, you'll know I didn't like it so much. Come on. All right. This is my leanest cheese. It's the only one that had no nuts at all. I made one that was my savory ricotta, that's in there, and that had some nuts and some beans. It could be all nuts, which is a half a cup of cashews to make a large quantity, or it could have half beans and half cashews. But this one has none of that. You're getting some fat, as you saw, but you're not getting any. It's much leaner than using a half a cup. And in the case of the blue cheese, and the blue cheese was so good, that used 2 cups of cashews. And another one was that the red pepper cheese used cashews and pine nuts. Okay, let me get this out of the way. And the molds were simply purchased. These were little cake molds, but they're non-stick. I always put, and it's a very good idea to have something at the bottom, and I dipped my finger in the coconut oil and put it along the edges. I've not done that before, but it was in her instructions. I thought I'll just follow them. Normally, once it's done, either in the refrigerator, as she had recommended, just let it sit, you can eat it. Slice it around, and then with this, it turns out easily, and then you peel the parchment off, and that's easy enough to cut. You just draw a circle on your parchment paper around the bottom of it, and then cut it in a little bit. And I'm using this little glass one because this is going to give me more than I need for this one mold. So but this would be it. It's this simple to make your cheese. I'll show you up to the filling of this one. Then you're going to see a picture of this finished, because to make this interesting, because you can see there's kind of nothing to it. We have, what do we have here? Just a bunch of beans. So this is high protein. It has a good amount of fiber. Yes, there's salt. Yes, there's fat from the tahini and 1 tablespoon of coconut oil. And we have this brininess, a little bit of garlic. Okay, this is it. So I could refrigerate this and let it set. But instead, I'm going to put it in the dehydrator. I'll put another piece of parchment on it. I cut a lot of those at a time. I'll put it in the dehydrator and we'll see what I think of it. I'll put the rest in here and put that in as well as sort of a tester. This isn't enough. What is left isn't enough to fill another mold, even though I could do a much more shallow mold. And you buy these 3 at a time. I got rectangular molds, and you'll just see that in some of the, on the charcuterie board, you'll see the rectangular one. But this is how it'll end. When this is turned out, and I put it on a plate, and I like the idea of keeping these lightly covered after you've refrigerated them so that they don't get too moist. I like them days later. In most cases I've made, well, this whole thing started because a friend of mine said, I'm making cheeses. And he said, oh, would you bring a charcuterie board? I thought, oh, crud, that takes a number of cheeses. So I ended up making 5 cheeses. And it became something I just loved having around because people liked it, I liked it, And it was kind of fun to put cheese on things besides crackers. One of them can be something like a crisp bread. This is Trader Joe's crisp bread, Norwegian crisp bread. Very healthy. It's just a lot of seeds and nuts. Is there even nuts in it, or is it just primarily seeds? Yeah, primarily seeds. And but what I found is, well, the other thing I found is that I loved it on things like jicama or radishes that I buy from the farm store that are kind of big. Slice the radishes, fabulous on the radish. On the last charcuterie board, I had my kumquats, and I sliced them in half. I have wonderful kumquats on the tree, and I put it on the kumquats, and people loved that. I didn't put it on, they put it on themselves. But on this one, when it's turned out on a plate, you'll see, based on the picture, it has like a crumb crust, and this is what's used. The crisp bread could be what you use to break up into crackers and put it on, or put on it. But in this case, I crunched them up. I just put them in a plastic baggie and kind of pounded them into a crumble. And then the crumble was pressed up against the, you're not gonna be able to see, against the cheese, but I'm gonna show you anyway. This is her photo of this cheese. I thought, what the heck is all of that? And then I realized it's on a cracker, and then it has that crumble all over it. So there you have it. If you try this, let me know. I hope you like it. I could have made it more orange with a little bit of that, the carotene in it, but I didn't. And you'll see the photos, and give us a thumbs up. Tell people about aging with power, which you can do with lifestyle modifications that serve you well, and a whole food, plant-based dietary lifestyle. Have a great day. I'm going to. Bye-bye.